Clinical death is something in between life and real death. Many people who have been in this state have never been able to go back, but some have managed to do so and have started their experiences. What's next? Heaven, hell, darkness, light, or something else? Let's find out. This is Infinity, and today you'll learn about people who have experienced clinical death and told what's waiting for us there. Many people believe that after death we'll either go to heaven or hell. For those who believe just that, there's bad news. It seems that the destination is hell. At least that's what Natalia Volkova from Russian Rostov-on-Don told us. The woman experienced clinical death and was in an intermediate state for about 5 minutes after developing a severe sore throat. As she recalled, she saw another world. At first, it was as if she was flying over the rooftops of her city and then over the entire planet. And then she began to fall into an abyss where endless suffering reigned, from which there was no escape. Fortunately, Natalia was saved. She returned to her body, though she said it wasn't easy. You don't have to worry about that story alone. Other people describe their experiences differently. For example, a woman named Faiths believed that after death there is no hell waiting for us, but a real heaven. A couple years ago, Faiths was in a serious car accident. After waking up in the hospital a few days later, she said she experienced an unfathomable feeling while clinically dead. Faith says she saw her lifeless body in the wreckage of her car and then went to heaven. She watched everything from above. Faith recalls being surrounded by a bright light, and there was a calm and warm feeling in her soul, the warmest feeling imaginable and unimaginable. All around Faith's were green hills, and bright, beautiful color shone through. Maybe this was what heaven was all about. Galina Lagoda experienced something similar. Coincidence or not, like Faith's, she too was in a serious car accident, suffering many injuries. Galina also experienced clinical death. When she woke up, she said she flew through black space and saw a bright light. She found herself in a shining, light-drenched space. Before her stood a huge man in such blindingly white clothing that his face wasn't visible. As Galina recalls, the stranger told her to rest for a while and to go back since she still had much to do on Earth. What exactly was it? Just a strange, bright room? Or a piece of heaven in which Galina was met by the Creator himself? Of course, this is unknown. But the experience of clinical death has completely changed the woman's life. Now she lives in harmony with herself and has no fear of dying. Not everyone is lucky enough to find themselves in a place of light where one feels peace. Vera Turcevic, who experienced clinical death in 2002, describes her otherworldly experience differently. According to her, after everything happened, she was whirled away somewhere in the dark. According to the woman in that state, she was as small as a firefly and had no arms or legs. Everyone around her was small too, and she could hear their thoughts. When Vera was being saved, she would return to her body and then fall back into total darkness. At the same time, unlike some of the other people from this episode, Vera remembered the resuscitation actions of the doctors and could even think in the state of clinical death, though she didn't fully understand what was happening to her. Surely many of you know about such an actress as Sharon Stone, but did you know that one of the most famous actresses of her time managed to experience clinical death and share an interesting experience about another world? It all happened in 2001, when Sharon suffered a massive stroke and brain hemorrhage. When it all happened, Sharon, in her own words, experienced both physical and spiritual death. She felt that she left her body and saw the light at the end of the tunnel. But most importantly, she experienced the feeling of communicating with people who had died before her. It didn't feel like a typical dialogue. Sharon wasn't having a conversation with them, but she had the feeling that she was communicating with them. What do you think all of this could mean? Who can we communicate with in this way in another world? With our deceased relatives or with someone else? Most people who experience clinical death talk about going to another world where everything looks and feels different. Yuri Burkov, on the other hand, has a different experience. Sometime in the past, he fell from a great height, was seriously injured, and fell into a coma. Then he experienced clinical death. When he returned and recovered, the first thing he asked his wife was, "Did you find the keys?" When his wife shook her head, Yuri said, "They're under the stairs." And so it turned out. As Yuri said, being in that very state, he flew in the form of a cloud. He flew to where, according to him, his deceased relatives live. And in our world, he followed his wife in real time, saw all her actions, and heard all her words. If this is true, then maybe many theorists and psychics are right in saying that dead relatives are watching over us and protecting us. The light at the end of the tunnel is probably the most common thing that people who experience clinical death talk about. A girl named Anna experienced clinical death at the age of 19 and said that after the cardiac arrest she observed an interesting thing: the brightest white light that could not be found anywhere else on our planet. According to Anna, the light was at the end of a long hall. She waited to walk down the hall to the end and didn't want to go back. The light attracted her like a magnet, but she didn't make it to the end. Anna was saved just in time. Generally speaking, scientists believe that the light at the end of the tunnel can be explained scientifically. According to them, it's a sign that visual analyzers stop responding to peripheral vision. This happens when the brain is oxygen-starved. In this case, the body highlights and shows us only the important things. In this case, it's the central part of the picture being viewed. That's why many people who experience clinical death talk about light at the end of the tunnel. There are scientific explanations for other phenomena and experiences as well. Appearing visions. Many people, including those from this episode, recall that in the state of clinical death they had visions, usually of relatives who are no longer alive. Scientists attribute this to a decrease in blood supply due to cardiac arrest. This provokes a blackout of consciousness. The patient finds it increasingly difficult to perceive their surroundings. Moreover, the body stops responding to signals from the organs of vision and replaces them with images from their subconscious. If the doctor from the intensive care team bent over the body is similar to a relative of the dying person, then this image will pop up in their memory. What about flying? For example, Yuri Burkov said that he flew in the form of a cloud, moving between worlds and watching over his relatives. Is this a confirmation of the existence of the soul, which is able to leave the body at the moment of clinical death? Researchers believe that it's about something else, namely the disabling of the vestibular apparatus. Immediately after the visual organs are blocked, the body ceases to correctly recognize messages from the vestibular apparatus. The person ceases to locate themselves in space, which gives rise to an imaginary feeling of flying. Also, many people who have experienced clinical death say that if they didn't fly, they at least saw themselves from the side. According to scientists, the reason is that a person in a critical situation often separates themselves from their body. Many people who have experienced clinical death said that the afterlife was very good. They described an incredible feeling of happiness and said they didn't want to go back. Scientists believe that this is due to an increased concentration of serotonin, the happiness hormone. A lack of oxygen supply causes an increase in the concentration of serotonin in the brain. The hormone is responsible for feelings of joy. Its excess makes people feel euphoria and kindness to everyone. Together with a feeling of flight and visions, it seems as if an angel himself has descended to a person who is embracing them with his wings. It's all clear, but what actually awaits us all after death? Unfortunately, or fortunately, no one has an exact answer to this question, but there are many theories and assumptions. Some believe that there is no death as such and that a person immediately reborn into someone else, so think those who believe in reincarnation. Some scientists believe that when we die, we become part of the universe, literally, dissolving into space in the form of quantum information. Anesthesiologist Stuart Hamroff, a proponent of this theory, believes that this is why people experience near-death experiences in the clinical death state. They see bright lights or feel that they're flying through a tunnel of some kind. Some think that after death there's a portal to another reality, similar to heaven, and some researchers believe that there is no death at all, and that it's a deception created by our imagination. That's all, guys. What do you think awaits us after death? Share your thoughts in the comments. Thanks for watching, and see you later.